Welcome back to Raising Caper. In this episode, we're going to talk about the Island Caper's history and her previous owner, Terry Buzzard, and how we're adding to the history of the Island Caper. Cool. Ooh, the boat's getting sanded on.
Hi, I'm Kenny.
I'm Xander.
And I'm Tom.
We've conquered a lot of fun and difficult challenges over the years.
But we're ready for our biggest adventure yet.
That's why we traded in our normal lives to buy an old 100-foot boat called the Island Caper,
with the intent to convert it into a premier restaurant and bar cruising out of Bellingham, Washington.
Now the Island Caper is halfway through her renovation.
So we're going to take you behind the scenes with us where you can follow along in our journey.
Are you brave enough to chase down your dreams?
I drove down, I'd like to say by myself, but I had a house plant named Billy in my passenger seat. I got down to Bellingham and moved right onto the Caper. I had only seen her once on a quick trip, and then all of a sudden I was living on her and I was invested, and we were here, we were getting into it. And in my time on the Caper, at least 10 people stopped by that saw our new Island Caper logo up, and they just kept stopping by and asking about Terry, asking about what we were doing with the boat. And it was pretty interesting that so many people had a little story or some kind of attachment to the Caper. The guy that owned the Island Caper before us was a gentleman named Terry Buzzard.
So Terry Buzzard was essentially the pioneer of the whale watching industry in the Puget Sound. He started with a series of smaller boats. The company he owned was Island Mariner Cruises. The Island Caper was essentially like the pinnacle of his operation, the boat he worked towards his whole career. The Island Caper is pretty steeped with history. I mean, it hasn't always been an excursion boat. She started out as a workboat in Louisiana. She was built in 1974 in Morgan City and looked completely different. All she did was run crew from the mainland in Louisiana out to oil rigs in the Gulf of Mexico. I think it was in the 70s the price of oil dropped. The oil companies sold off a lot of these crew boats, and now they've become passenger boats all over the country. They're everywhere. And that's what happened to the Island Caper. When the Exxon Valdez disaster happened, he had this wood boat, a big wood boat, that he got a government contract to essentially run it as a floating hotel near Valdez. And he made enough money on that government contract that he bought the Island Caper. And so he went back east, brought it from Boston, where the boat had ended up as a sightseeing boat in Boston Harbor. And they brought the boat all the way down the East Coast, through the Gulf of Mexico, through the Panama Canal, up the West Coast, ran into pirates. Terry Buzzard's best friend, Tom Walton, was there. And they had buddies with sniper rifles. They were shooting at these pirates. That was Terry Buzzard's style. He was like, he does what he wants by the seat of his pants. He'd rather beg forgiveness than ask permission. I think Xander's more like Terry Buzzard than any one of us.
From what we understand about Terry Buzzard, if I could paraphrase everyone, he was a pretty eccentric guy. He was kind of a cowboy, but, you know, a sea cowboy in the Pacific Northwest kind of way.
This is Terry Buzzard as a young man, right here. So this is Terry Buzzard wearing blue, and he actually got John Wayne into boating. So him and this is John Wayne right here, this is the Duke. They're on the Wild Goose, John Wayne's yacht, and they're clamming up in Stewart Island in BC together. So, Terry Buzzard was just a real personable guy. Like Xander in the sense that Terry Buzzard could strike up a conversation with anybody. And then, Terry Buzzard was one of those guys that kind of like the flames that burn brightest burn the shortest kind of a thing. He burned the candle at both ends. And that's how we came to buy the boat. He passed away.
He chose this life because he wanted to. There's no other reason why you would do this. It's not for the money. It's not for the sake of being an entrepreneur. It's a lifestyle choice. And
the three of us complement each other very well, and we all, I think, have the perfect amount of moderated crazy with each other. We definitely like to be adventurous and fly by the seat of our pants at times. We like to get our hands dirty. A lot of people during this process have looked us in the face and told us, "Oh, you can't do that," and we did. So I think that's a very Terry Buzzard thing to do.
The boat's purpose since Terry Buzzard bought it was to create exceptional moments and memories for people. And now we're trying to combine amazing scenery with amazing food, and we're gonna breathe new life into the spirit of the vessel.
It's more of a local vessel when you're on it than a lot that we've been on. It's kind of like when you're in a restaurant in a 100-year-old brick building. It just feels warmer and better and more personable. So
See, the problem is, like, we've put so much money into the caper that, like, we could have just bought one and had it built, and it'd be brand new, and it'd be like in a much better condition, and it would be probably in a much better configuration to like to serve more passengers. But the caper has a lot of rich Pacific Northwest history to it already.
I mean, it's a lot of work, but I do think, our locally sourced food and adventures that we want to do, nothing's more Pacific Northwest than an old boat that's been in the Pacific Northwest for a long time. Getting people out on the water is something that the boat's always done, but expanding the windows and bringing some of the food and spirits and beer of the local area is just going to enhance any of the experiences that people have ever had on the Island Caper.
I think Terry Buzzard's spirit lives on in the vessel for sure, and it definitely I think is a part of our story now too. And that's probably one of the coolest things about this journey, is being a part of that legacy and being a part of the Island Caper's history and story.
We don't really know what we're doing, but we are learning along the way. It really embodies the spirit of Terry Buzzard. He built his business from the ground up, learned as he went, made friends along the way. I mean, that's really the spirit of Terry Buzzard, is just do it. Just get out, do it, and make it happen. We'll eventually get there, or we will die trying.